children. How is that in a child's best interest? Who wins? Does mum win? No. Does dad win? No.
That's a very strong
Does a child win? No. Who wins? There's only one type of person wins. That's the legal issue.
But that's a consequence. Why does that happen? It's a consequence of having an unclear law.
What judges decide in 93% of all cases that come before them is that the children should live with mum and see dad in a few hours of state-sanctioned time on prescribed days, as though they were an occasional visiting uncle made strange by distance and uncomfortable by unfamiliarity. What happened to me was that not only is the time not enough, but that time is you're controlling the knowledge that they are going away from you in 30 seconds, 29, 25, 26. It's not that, wow, I've got an hour with them. It's that I've only got an hour left.
Got the hour.
And it's the dripping, the slow, corrosive drip of state-appointed time.
And it's the fixed time as well that's really upsetting. One father lived just one street away from the mother, and he saw the mother walking down the street with this little girl, and so she ran to him saying, "Daddy, Daddy, Daddy," and the mother literally pulled the child away from her father in the middle of the street. And that's happened on a number of occasions. Clients tell me this is what's happened, and it's with the child so traumatised, it's just almost being dragged away from their father, and literally because it's like it's not your contact time.
You go to cafes and you look across and you see the man sitting there in the corner with the two kids in the wimpy bar or whatever, and you can just tell that that's that poor sod who's seeing his kids for the weekend, and he's got to take them out somewhere and he's got to make them happy. And that is the trouble when you're in that situation. You're trying so hard to make them happy that it often doesn't work. You know, you just having the kids and trying to make them happy and trying to give them all the things to do. Sometimes they just want to sit and watch the telly.
They and I hate having to cram 2 weeks worth of time into one weekend. I'm absolutely exhausted at the end of it.
In many cases, this so-called contact, this disgraceful notion and impertinent language of access between father and child will not involve an overnight stay. After their day out with dad, he's expected to get the children back to the mother's home in time for dinner. The terror of being that 5 minutes late can often mean a lawyer's letter chastising your parenting and threatening further withdrawal of your child. Not only is this heartbreaking, but more importantly, it causes immediate, long-term psychological damage to their children.
The evening rituals are really very important emotionally, and being able to participate in getting the child bathed and reading them stories and snuggling them to sleep in bed, those are really precious moments for a parent and for a child. They're part of the crucial glue that keeps those relationships going. And if you cut a parent out of those really precious moments, you diminish the opportunities to have a rich, deep, warm relationship.
This is the thing specifically that almost drove me, properly insane. The smell of my children in the house, tucking them up, going in to just make sure they're all right, kissing them goodnight, bathing, the bedtime story, the cuddles, the hot chocolate. That really almost drove me insane, that had just gone like that.
Easter, I remember staying overnight, and for the first time I tucked him into bed, and it was pitiful, really. It really was. I had nothing, and I tucked him into bed, and they went off to sleep, and I just sat there and watched them all night. I just watched them sleep. I hadn't seen this for 6 months. I hadn't been in this part of their life for 6 months. Tucking them up into bed and sleep. My son was 10 by then, but my daughter was only 6. And it was. I just remember sitting there in this squalid little bedsit, looking at them and thinking, wow.
The whole issue of how much contact fathers have with their children is bound up with this issue of their intimacy with the children and their keeping in touch as the children grow up. We've looked at a very large sample of families, around 10,000 families, in which we looked at mothers' reports of how well their children were doing after separation. And essentially the story was exactly the same, that the children who saw more of their fathers, who had frequent and regular contact with their fathers, who felt close and involved with their fathers, were doing much better in terms of adjustment. I mean, there's a completely clear, unequivocal pattern of results. So it's in everybody's interest, I think, for fathers to be being a parent, even if they're on their own.
What's important is the continuation of the relationship and preserving that stability.
So if that is the norm for those children, moving between their dads, their home with their dad, their home with their mum, that is as stable psychologically for them as any other domestic device.
Well, and it doesn't have to have been the norm for the children. What's important is that the norm was that they had relationships with both parents. And it's preserving those relationships that's important. And I would argue that that's an issue of children's rights.
The more family that a child's got in their lives, the more family they see, and the more you tell that child, oh, you're wonderful, what a beautiful girl, what a handsome little boy, how clever you are, you're going to be top of the class. The more you tell a child that, they will grow and have confidence and they'll feel stable and they'll grow up being a better person for that.
The harm that this outdated defunct family law causes to children, their fathers, and the extended families cannot be underestimated. Fractured families, scarred children, distraught grandparents. What have we become that we allowed this system to continue when we know the damage that it's doing? It breaks our hearts, destroys our children, it's ruinous for society, it makes the culture vulgar and perverse, it costs a fortune, and it flies in the face of everything we know as humans, that children love both of their parents, and in turn, both of their parents love them.
Life is empty and quiet. And all those times when you go, God, just give me an afternoon breathing space, which most parents know. I actually long for the mess and the chaos and all the things that go with it.